Hello, it's Charlie from Oxford Brookes Library. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can confidently and accurately reference EU sources using OSCOLA. We'll start off by looking at some of the ways EU law is produced, including the official journal. Often, you have lots of numbers and other bits of information, but you may be unsure which ones you need in your footnotes. So I'll show you what to look out for. We'll then look at three different types of EU material: treaties, secondary legislation, and cases from the European Court of Justice. I'll show you how to create a footnote for each of these. Finally, I'll show you how you can learn more and get further support. I'm only looking at footnotes in this video, not bibliographies. There's a separate video on how to create an OSCOLA bibliography, and you can find the link below this video. EU law can seem quite daunting because it's so different to English law. When it comes to OSCOLA though, not everything is new. Yes, you may never have used an EU directive in an essay before, but things like books, journal articles and websites will be familiar from previous assignments. So take comfort in the fact that you already know how to reference some of your sources. If you do want to brush up your skills on things like books and journal articles, which I'm not covering in this video, then I've linked to another video below. The official journal of the European Union, usually just called Official Journal, is where EU legal documents are formally published. So much information is published in the Official Journal that it's split up into a handful of smaller series. Most of the things we use are in the L volume. Here, L stands for legislation. Very occasionally, things will be in the C volume. As you'll see in a moment, we need to give our readers information about where in the official journal they can find our sources. Please don't get misled or sidetracked by the word journal in the name official journal. I don't want you to think, I found this legal document in the official journal, therefore I need to reference it like a journal article. Despite its name, the official journal isn't anything like, say, the Modern Law Review or the Cambridge Law Journal. Just think of it as the place where EU legislation is found, and don't get distracted by the word journal in its name. Let's say we found a treaty on Westlaw and we wanted to reference it. Incidentally, it's beyond the scope of this video to show you how and where to find EU sources. There's a link below to a video that does show you this. In this video, we're just assuming you found them and we're going to reference them. So, down the right-hand side of the treaty, I found this information. Look how it tells us at the bottom about the official journal. This treaty was published in the C journal, in the C series, in issue number 306, starting at page 1. So how would we turn that into a footnote? Here's the template from section 261 of the OSCOLA Handbook, showing me what I need. I have the title of the piece of legislation, followed by its year in square brackets. I then tell my reader where to find it in the official journal. Remember how we saw that on Westlaw? We saw that it was in the C series, issue 306, starting on page 1. Look how in my footnote I write that 306/1. Let's just go back to our source for a moment. This is a really common thing to happen when we're referencing. We've actually been told more than we need. We don't just know the year, we have a full date, the 17th of December. We also have the SELEX number. This is like a unique identification number for EU sources. You might think, oh, it will help my reader if I tell them everything. But just stick to the template. The template doesn't ask for a full date or for a SELEX number, so we don't need to include them. This second example is a piece of secondary legislation in this case a regulation which I found on EUR-Lex. Just like we did on Westlaw, I want to show you what to look out for when you're on EUR-Lex. Look at the bottom line in this image. We can see here that this regulation was published in the L series, issue 295, starting at page 1. Feel free to pause the video if you need a bit of time to see this. Once again, we've been told some extra things. As well as the start page, we've been told the end page, 42. And again, we've got the full date of publication, not just a year. As we'll see in a moment, we don't need to include everything we're given. In case you're wondering, all the letters in brackets at the end indicate which EU languages this document is available in. So this is how we reference any secondary legislation, i.e. regulations, directives, decisions, recommendations and opinions. The end of the footnote is very similar to the treaty footnote, but the start is different. Before we get to the title, we need to tell our readers what this source is. See at the start of the template where it says legislation type and number. Let's quickly look back at EUR-Lex. The legislation type and number is here for us. It says Council Regulation EC 1984/2003 of 8 April 2003, introducing a system, blah, 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 blah. And then it carries on with the title. So by copying and pasting the title from EUR-Lex, it scoops up the legislation, type, number and title all in one. So it covers all of those elements. The end of the footnote is just like our treaty footnote. We have the year in square brackets, followed by OJ, the OJ series, here it's L, and then the issue/start page. Feel free to skip back if you want to see where I found that OJ information on EUR-Lex. One thing that looks a bit odd, but to reassure you is correct, is the number of times that 2003 appears in this footnote. It's in the title, in the legislation number, and in the square brackets. That might seem a bit excessive, but it is correct. With both treaties and secondary legislation, you may want to draw your reader's attention to a particular section. In OSCOLA, we call this pinpointing. Here, I've got the same two examples from earlier, but they've now got a pinpoint stuck on the end. In my treaty, I replaced the full stop with a comma and then Art 3, short for Article 3. In my second footnote, I've done a similar thing, but I've pinpointed paragraph 1b in Article 3. You can use multiple sets of brackets like this if you need to drill down within an article. Article is abbreviated to Art. If a document is structured differently, for example if it has sections or schedules rather than articles, then there's a handy table in section 2.4.2 of the OSCOLA Handbook with all the abbreviations listed. Both OSCOLA and EU law in the same video. This is a lot. Let's just take a deep breath and admire this little guy before we move on. Right, our final example is for a case in the European Court of Justice. I've got screenshots here from both Westlaw and EUR-Lex for the same case. The two important things we need are the case number and details of where the case was reported. If possible, use a citation for the official European Court reports, ECR. I'll show you later what to do if your case wasn't reported in the ECR. As usual, we're given more information than we need. Westlaw has given us the CELEX number for this case, and EUR-Lex is giving us a different ID number, an ECLI identifier. As we'll see, the OSCOLA template for cases doesn't require this information, so we can ignore it. Like we did with our EU regulation, we need to start by saying what type of resource this is. So we start with the word case and the case number. Feel free to skip back if you want to see where I found this case number in EUR-Lex or Westlaw. Just like an English case, we've then got the names of the parties in italics with a V in the middle. Finally, we tell our readers where this case was reported. So we have the year in square brackets, the abbreviation ECR for European Court Reports, and finally the page the case starts on. In the European Court Reports, page numbers usually look like this, with a Roman numeral 1 or 2 dash number. Again, feel free to skip back if you want to see where I got this ECR information from in the Westlaw or EUR-Lex screenshots. Don't fret if you can't see any mention of the ECR when you look at a case. Although lots of European cases are reported here, it doesn't mean that they're all in there. You might instead see details of the common market law reports or another series of law reports instead. That's fine, just use that at the end of your reference instead of the ECR details. One good tip is to make the most of the information in your EU textbook. If you look at the front, there are really comprehensive lists of key cases, directives, treaties, etc. These references aren't necessarily presented in the OSCOLA style, so you may need to tweak them. But the fiddly things like the case number or the OJ information are in there. Just to clarify though, there are blue numbers at the end of each reference in these lists. These aren't part of the reference. They're page numbers, so you can find where in your EU textbook that case is discussed. If you want to dig a bit deeper into either OSCOLA or EU law, there is a section on the law page of the library website dedicated to each of these. Again, I've popped the links below. If you're still baffled by OSCOLA, please do get in touch. I can't check your referencing for you, but I can answer any questions you may still have. OSCOLA workshops run every semester and they're open to all law students. There's a link below where you can see the dates of upcoming sessions and book your place.